Hi, this is Choice from the Grand, providing in-game commentary for the new Zul'Gurub instance currently on the PTR. This is a very early build and a lot of things haven't really been done yet, so a lot of things will change over the coming months, and I will probably update this at some point. But this is just a brief overview of what's currently happening. Personally, I fucking hate this place, but I'll get into that. So the first thing here is a gauntlet. With 3 mini-bosses, all of which boast abilities which are included in the first boss encounter. So this boss, for example, has the channeled effect for the boss channels, which needs to be interrupted. Pretty much the damage stacks up the longer it's channeled, so you have to interrupt it as soon as possible. So this gauntlet here is fairly straightforward. The only real gimmick is that you're required to use the cauldron that you would have seen earlier by killing that boss. It reduces the nature damage you take by 90% and is required to be able to survive the damage without the cauldron effect. You're looking at about 7k damage per second, which is probably too much to be doing without that cauldron effect. So this boss here, it can't really be tanked. Obviously it has an aggro table, but it doesn't do much. The boss will target a random person and channel them with cast, which will make them deal damage to people around them and to themselves. It can't be interrupted and is not that much damage. It's easy to deal with as long as people aren't stacked up. And if you saw, there's a tree which is lovingly blocking your way towards the that boss, because you can't have a free roaming instance, God forbid. But regardless, now this next boss takes the it's sort of a reverse brain link mechanic. I can't remember what it's called, but pretty much it's like the opposite of Yoxeron, where you'll target 2 people with a link and you have to run away from each other. So you may have seen it there. It's also trees got in the way. Fairly simple mechanic. This trash now. This is more for tanks than anything else. If you have a look here, these ads will channel a breath, which is easily, like they don't turn, it's easy to get out of. And pretty much as they move, they're going to drop puddles beneath them. If you saw one which just dropped there. And they do slowly expand as time goes on. Pretty much for this fight, you don't need the cauldrons, but it's helpful purely because for tanks that don't know how to move out of them, or aren't aware that it's possible to move out of them, it won't annihilate you, where it otherwise would. It's pretty much just a failsafe for the boss. So they also cast a ability called Remove Neutralizer, so you want to make sure that if you are using those cauldrons, that you make sure that if it is removed, you within range to hit it again. Obviously you don't want to be tanking the ads right on the cauldron, otherwise you won't have the ability to actually click on them. But yeah, it's fairly simple trash here. The neutralizer actually is interruptible as well, so you can always do that. But see, how many people are actually interrupting, including myself in this case. Didn't really get removed at all. I'm not sure if it's just casting the tank or if it's casting the entire group, but I think seeing as the tanks are the only ones that really need it, it makes a little difference. So this is the boss. It's playing at 5-15% to make sure that you can see what's happening. So there's 2 trails of slime which will appear slowly from the 2 sides of the stairs. They don't target anyone in particular, they just move around. You may think they're targeting you, but they're probably not. So as you can see, that it takes the brain link mechanic, also the channeling ability, which I mentioned earlier, which you have to interrupt. And I just had a random clicking sound. What was that? Anyway, so he'll have a transition here, and then he picks up all the abilities of the trash that we just completed. Now, if you have a look here, you've got no real crotch for the damage, so you have to avoid it. It ticks for, I think it was, I can't remember how much it was, but it was a lot. Like if I stood in it, my health would drop pretty quickly. So you can see they're about 25k a second. So those puddles are also dropped. Similarly to the second boss in Throne of the Tides, it is good to start off in a corner, but you don't have to for this, seeing as they don't expand very much and you have plenty of space to work with. Your main priority is to make sure you've got space to get away from the breaths if you're a tank. Now this mechanic is called Blood Venom. He'll pick 3 random players and will channel slime at them, as you're about to see here. You get plenty of time to move away from them before they start chasing you. They don't move very quickly, it's easy to avoid the damage. If you're not targeted, obviously just stay away from them. And yeah, very simple. So after that the boss jumps back down, he'll be exhausted, he'll be stunned and take extra damage. So this is the best time to pop Lust or Heroism, assuming that you need it. And after that the phase just continues as normal. This actually seemed to be killing a lot of our healers this phase. Like we've been fine up until this point, then the healer will just start dropping every single time, as he does now, due to incidental damage that wasn't really interrupted. He does pop up so we do kill it, but every other time we've attempted it, we have had a healer death that resulted in a wipe. So I'm not sure if that's just the quality of the healers on the PTR, seeing as everyone's in the same set of gear, so it's easy to be a retard. Yeah, there's a nice little achievement for that kill. I'm not sure if it's currently bugged or if I'm just that good, but apparently I'm a fucking badass. Anyway, this next trash, more mini bosses, not a fan at all. This boss does buckle, except and rage effect. These ads don't hit very hard at all. I just bashed the mic. I'm not going to start filming again, God forbid. It's been, what, 5.5 minutes so far. So yeah, there's the enrage, just DPS it down. No real stress here. Totally pointless and asinine. There's no real point to these bosses from what I understand. Seeing as this place isn't itemized yet, there's no way of knowing if these guys will drop some form of loot. But, they serve no purpose from what I've seen so far. I didn't actually get an opportunity to complete this instance, and maybe there's a boss later on that is only unlocked by killing everything, or maybe the achievement's the only real purpose of it. But, so this next guy, just a boulder thrower person. So you just avoid the boulders and pull in. He has way too much health for someone I'd assume is just there as a tool to show that boulder rolling mechanic. Once again, it doesn't feel like Zul'Gurub to me, because that's not something you would have seen in Zul'Gurub. First question, where they get the boulders from? It's the middle of the jungle. Did they dig it up? While they dig it up looking for boulders. Christ. But anyway, this trash is made completely asinine and pointless by the fact that there are cauldrons around which pretty much give you an RNG chance to hit for 74,000 with all your abilities. I assume it's all, maybe it's just the next one, I didn't actually get a chance to see, but if you have a look here, Mage clicks the cauldron, and I believe one of them gets frozen pretty quickly here. Maybe he doesn't, but that cauldron pretty much will make your next attack, or I believe it's a chance on your next attack. It'll freeze the target and deal 74,000 odd damage. So as you can see, it just trivializes the trash, you just annihilate them. It's actually offensive as to why they put the trash here if it's going to be made so boring. I'm not sure if this is intentional or not, or if the damage is overtuned, but I believe that they're going to have to nerf this if they want to make this trash actually mean something, because, that's another example of them blocking things off that were actually interesting. So they've cleared this out and made it a completely different setup. It still has the same sort of basic soul captured mechanics, but I believe this is bugged right now, because if you have a look here, boss dead, thanks for coming. Clearly not intentional. So that'll have to be fixed at some point, and hopefully I'll be able to get some footage of that. So just stop by here quickly and kill another mini-boss. This one just has a fear pretty much. Once again, completely asinine, and just shows off that they've blocked the path to a spider. I don't have a problem with the fact that they've blocked off these entrances. I don't expect them to all be there, and all the bosses sitting there waiting for us to kill them again. But, it feels like they've linearized an instance, which was fun because it wasn't linear. Like, in essence it was, but if you wanted to clear it backwards, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. If you wanted to clear spider last, you could do that. It wasn't the best way of doing it in terms of time, but you could, and it felt more open than this does. The fact that you can mount in it, it's pretty much anything that keeps it open. If it wasn't for that, it would pretty much be, I don't know, the equivalent to Utgard Keep in my mind, which I consider to be the ultimate linear instance. So with these just once the named one is killed, the shield will drop on them. Throughout that entire phase, they're casting an ability which will eventually transform them into snakes. So your goal is to kill the ad as quickly as possible and begin AoEing them down before they transform, or probably have them all at half health before they transform, because the AoE damage will annihilate your raid pretty quickly. So I'm just stopping here to see what's happening. Obviously they've made this completely boring and pointless as well. I'm not sure exactly what it's for, but apparently it's archaeology, according to someone else in the group. So, yeah, another gauntlet here. Well, not really a gauntlet, but another little froggery type thing. And it doesn't really hit very hard, 34k. I don't know if you saw, I just tested it. Not much of a challenge, really, but, whatever. Once again, another very Zul'Gurub-y instance. See, I remember that in Zul'Gurub, the good old times of, oh wait, never mind. That's Alcatraz I'm thinking of. I don't like this at all. This boss, I believe, is not ready yet, or something was wrong with it, because I don't see any mechanics go off whatsoever. I was told to expect black void zones to appear on the ground and to move away from them, which is obviously, the peak of innovation. But, nothing actually happened there, so I assume there's more to that fight. But, mustn't be in yet. I think it's interesting with the Zul'Gurub. My screen just went black. That's good. I think it's interesting with the villages around here. The fact that you know, they're just sort of sitting there chilling, and the fact that they get involved sort of bothers me. Like if they were green or at least not attackable, I'd sort of prefer that. Because if you have a look here on this boss, they do get in the way. And this isn't actually a boss, by the way. This is more for the achievement, I believe. There are multiple lost offsprings around here. If you saw before, there's 3 of them. From what I've seen so far, probably more. So this one has Interruptible Frost Breath. I had a blind cast on me at some point here. I'm not sure if that was from the neutral villages or if that was from the boss itself. But either way, it was a very trivial little thing there, which wasn't really setting the world on fire. Now this next one is a copy of the mini-boss from TK, the first one you pull when you pull Kale. Pretty much, you'll target someone, make it bloody obvious he's going to attack them, but the fact that you get a red arrow and a little beam channeling it towards you. Once again, the cauldrons trivialize this by emitting a 30k per second AoE effect. So pretty much as a kite you can float close to him to get the damage off, but it's not really a requirement. I do cut this off early because everyone starts dying and it takes forever, and you get the gist of what's happening by now. It's very, very simple mechanics here, ultimately, for that little mini-boss. But hey, mini-boss, what can you do? Now this next one, I'm not sure if this is functional or not, or if it's just that trivial. But once again, pull it to the cauldron and it becomes completely pointless because it starts emitting 30k per second damage. At least I think it was 30k, I'm not sure. Can't really see. But as you can see, it just completely falls over. That has 2 million health, keep in mind, so you know, we burned through 2 million health in a few seconds with, you know, gear that wasn't improved at all from current content. So we're getting towards the end of this video because I didn't record anything else. This instance really annoys me, this particular room, because all the bugs that were in here originally are still in here. Both in the bridge, aggro resetty thing bug, and also in the view distance issues. Now I know that no instance can be bug-proof, but with a part of an instance which is literally, you know, a little room like this, you want to make sure that you don't have major issues like, you know, being able to see through the floor. Especially considering that sometimes it's completely unintentional. But for example here, you'd assume that around this area would be the best place to tank it, assume that you're playing Wrath Lich King. I know I'm a bit of a retard, but anyway. So yeah, fall down the camera, suddenly my view distance vanishes. Which, you know, whatever. We died here for some reason, not sure what happened there. I assume it involves the lesser priests there, but regardless. After that point the healer ulted forward and yeah, nothing really continued. So that's a basic look of what's happening with Zul'Gurub right now. Obviously it's still got a lot of changes to be made and a lot of things need to be added. But for the time being I don't like this instance at all. I think it's very trivial, I think it's very pointless. And the first boss I think is challenging. I think if they're going to take that approach towards tier 2 of heroic content, that could be interesting, but the instance itself I feel is just catering to the requests people have had. Because when you think about it, people have been begging for this instance to come back since, you know, since before it was actually removed, since the announcement they've been wanting it back. So it hasn't even been a full content patch and Blizzard already caved to the requests. So, you know, maybe if they would have added this in maybe 6 months down the line, or maybe even a year later, people would either totally forget about it because all the fanboys would have quit by then, or maybe it would actually mean something, but it doesn't mean much to me at this point, personally.